Is it recording?
Yes.
Now it's recording. Okay. All right. Hello, world, and welcome to the world debut of a brand new cowboy show called Is It the Hot Dog or Is It the Bun?
Now this is a hot dog bun.
I think it's a hot dog, too.
I'm Jeff Cavanaugh from No One and Nothing. I'm just a YouTuber. This is Iisha Morrison. She works for the Cowboys. She
I
does
do.
all sorts of things. She also has a YouTube channel, which you're going to see this video on, I believe.
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
should make it huge. And Aisha's just been doing nothing for like 6 weeks. She got tired of football. She quit for 6 weeks. She just quit being football. And now she's back. And so now we can talk about Cowboys and get ready for training camp. Hi, Iisha.
Why you gotta tell all my business like that?
You announced it on Twitter. You announced that you had disappeared.
I be going on sabbatical. I from the season straight into draft. You got to be built a certain way, and the way my brain was fried, like so I needed some time to recoup, spend time with family, spend time with my kids. If by kids I mean my animals, because I have not done the kid human part yet.
Okay.
But yeah, I had to, get ready for this season.
I do think that people need to recognize there are content creators out there that are built different. My interest level in talking about stuff every day in June or early July is very low. So shout out to our buddy Skywalker Steel, who just powers through and comes up with a good show. Shout out to Vach. Shout out to you guys, because I don't have it in me.
They strong. If it ain't nothing to talk about, you know what? I'm gonna acquire some shut up in my spirit, and I know it. Like that shut up just sits there. I'm not doing nothing else. I can't do. Sometimes you gotta learn when to shut up.
Well, most people don't know how to. Sometimes I don't know how to, and that's okay. Sometimes, but sometimes shut up. Listen to Iisha or else. But hey, here's the good news. We're almost there.
Football's upon us.
We're almost there. And so now we can do football without having to think. We can't?
No, we're back to chaos.
Oh,
right
yeah. We're back in it. Now we have to know everything that everybody said and all the different things, and we have to get ready for Cowboys training camp. And I'm excited. I'm excited to training camp, because I feel like most training camps, when we go out there, Cowboys are so huge, obviously, that everybody wants to know everything that happens at a practice, and we can do big numbers on YouTube just saying, here's what happened at practice, because people really, really want to know. And the honest truth is, a lot of years, they're just getting ready to play football. Everything's already decided. It's not like there's any competition. This year is going to be kind of fun.
Yes.
Because there's actually some jobs on the line. And so that part gets me fired up.
I agree. And then also, too, you got a new, defensive coaching regime. We get to see kind of what we know his philosophy, but if he stepped away from the game for a little bit, has he made any changes? How he uses this specific roster, having Dan Quinn around for 3 years, 4 years, whatever that was. I mean, now having this new coach come in, it is kind of exciting. It could be chaotic, it could be terrible, but it is exciting to go along the ride and for us to feel like we have things to learn and to see, as opposed to just knowing like ain't about to be practicing turnovers out there. You know what I'm saying?
What are the odds that Micah or Mike Zimmer cusses the other one out?
Somebody will cuss somebody out, because let me tell you something. Like that's one of the only things that stood out to me. Everybody's like up in arms about some of the Michael conversation or whatever. And I'm like, y'all know what is the most important to me is that he and Zimmer sound like they ain't talk that much. And come again? What you mean y'all ain't talk? What you mean one of the focal points of your defense and you haven't been like chit-chatting it up? So we'll see, like two personalities, to say the least. Yes.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see how they work together. And I'm sure it'll be fine. Ultimately, it'll be, hey, Micah, go get the quarterback. And he'll be like, you got it. That's what I wanted to do anyway. But you know what threw me off? This is going to be a random aside. So the Malik Hooker thing, our buddy Skywalker Steel did a good job, because I didn't see the whole interview. Like everybody else, I saw what somebody clipped, and it was just like, who cares about that? I don't care. And then, yes, I know that earlier he said, I don't care if Micah podcast. But before that, I think it was the next day, I was watching Sky's show, and he played the other audio where he's like, well, the difference with Zimmer is going to be like, with Quinn, you mess up, and he'd be like, okay, we're going to get it right. We're going to get it right. And Zimmer's like, you can get off my field. Like, if you're not going to figure it out, somebody else will. And my question is, who do we think Malik Hooker was talking about last year that couldn't get stuff figured out? And I'm not going to answer that. I'm just going to leave that question out there. Who do we think didn't know what was going on?
It could have been a number of guys depending on the game, because baby in Green Bay didn't nobody know what the hell they were doing. Everybody looking
for a wheel route. No, that was interesting.
But that stood out to me too, though, because I think that honestly pissed me off, to be honest. I got upset because I'm thinking to myself, so y'all just had people on the field that didn't know what they was doing, or you are altering how you're running plays?
Right. We had to dumb it down is kind of what he said. We had to dumb it down.
We had to dumb it down?
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I like the fact I would much rather them adopt the, hey, dude, if you can't get it, you're going to have to get off the field, because that's how it's supposed to be, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's like, and that was one of the only things, and like, shout out to Dan Quinn, appreciate everything that he did here. But I do think that there was a level of comfort that I felt like the players developed, and like, this is my uncle. This is my guy. Like, there to me needs to be a distinction between, I am your coach. We may be personable. We may get along. I care about you, but that can't impede on the success of the team, because y'all dapping it up and playing patty cake. I don't like it.
I'm really excited because, like, I think part of that is what makes Dan Quinn good at his job, right? That he's personable and he has relationships with players. But I'm so interested to watch it go from backwards hat, relate to players, wear Jordans, secret handshakes, to Mike Zimmer out there with his little tiny skinny gut and big old dip in and flip flops, just like pissed off all the time. Oh,
they need it. They need it. I think his philosophy and how he plays football is I mean, I know some of the guys are excited, period, about specifically the secondary. It's like some of the things that they're going to be doing, because you know, with Dan Quinn, it was cover 1, cover 3, die. Cover 1, cover 3, or die. You gonna die. Like, there was a lack of creativity sometimes from that, and I think, you know, teams just knew what to expect. Like, they just knew what to expect from you. And also too, I'm excited about the usage of zone and stuff a little bit more, because, you know, with Dan Quinn, he heavily relied upon man, and nothing wrong with that if you got the guys to do it. But baby, what happens when you ain't got the guys to do it? So we know with Zim's system, he's going to show and go. I'm excited about some of the deception that he incorporates into it. Because I just thought we didn't get enough of that with Dan Quinn sometimes. So,
all right, Iisha, are you ready for Jeff's few training camp questions of the day for Iisha? That's the name of this segment. Jeff's training camp questions that he has for Iisha that will be answered by Iisha after Jeff asks the question. That's the name of the segment. You ready?
I don't know if we should be working together, because I understand everything you're saying. I don't know. I feel like this is dangerous.
Well, you could say that us working together is kind of like maybe effing it up.
Why not just start the day picking it up?
I love hitting buttons and making sounds. Iisha, who, by the way, if you're not familiar, make sure you're following her YouTube channel, because she is also a beast when it comes to the NFL draft, X's and O's, all of the things, scouting reports on the players on this team, et cetera, et cetera. Who will play the most snaps next to Eric Kendricks at linebacker?
You hate me or something?
I have no idea. Like,
you hate me?
The incumbent would be Damone Clark, but that bores me. I'm cheering for Overshown. But what about Leofau? Like, I don't know who it's going to be.
I think that there's a lot of it's hard. I think that Leofau will find his way on the field eventually, but there's a lot of similarities in play with Kendricks. Obviously, Kendricks is a little older, but those guys are a lot of the same in a sense.
So he might be replacement for long term.
Yeah, I think they're a lot of the same thing. I personally think that Leofau will become your Mike at whatever point in time, because one of the things that stood out to me in regard to his film, but also too, if you listen to character statements, if you listen to some of the news from the Senior Bowl, was this guy's calling out plays. And this is a Senior Bowl practice, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, this is new stuff, and he's calling out plays before they're happening, is what I was hearing about the Senior Bowl, and the intellect is there. And it's funny because he looks like a football Clark Kent with the glasses and stuff on field or whatever. But yeah, there, I will say from this class in particular, there's a maturity that they've come in with that it definitely does feel different. But in regards to the question, I also think DeMarvion overshone some guys, and you know this, Jeff, like some guys have an aura to them, or they have a feel to them where you're like, yeah, this guy is a little different. He built a little different. And I know he took his rehab so seriously. We've seen him put on some size. And I personally think, yeah, he may have some growing pains, and then also too coming back from the ACL, but he was already like a tick faster than everybody else. So him taking a step back, how much slower is he going to be? I think his length also too will suit him coming back from like an ACL type thing, like his recovery speed. I don't know what that's going to be, but I know I know hands down he's ready. And from the little bit we saw of him, this seems like a difference maker from the linebacker position. This is somebody people have to account for. So I would say it's going to be overshown, bro. I think he's going to earn it. I really do.
I hope so. That's what I'm cheering for, and I don't know why I'm cheering for it. Well, I guess I'm cheering for it because it seems exciting, because last year we saw some big plays and flying up and down the field. We saw a lot of fun things. And the other reason that I'm kind of cheering for it is the thing you were mentioning where you say like the aura or they look different or whatever. I think from Broadus, I learned that's the like first guy off the bus look. Like you have Overshown get off the bus first because the other team sees it and they go, damn.
Especially now, he looks like a unit, dude.
Yes.
I was him. John Stevens as well put on so much size, and it looks like healthy size. And Awesome Richards as well, like just look physically totally different than they did last year. And I think I'm glad that Overshown did that, because one thing that Zimmer don't like is linebackers that's light in the ass. And at this point, I'm over linebackers that's light in the ass. You know how happy I was to see, shout out to Marquise Bell. We love you, big dog.
Hey, he was great when they were passing the ball.
Yeah, you know how happy I was to see safety by his freaking name in the roster. I'm like, yes, let him play his position in peace.
Okay, you're going to make me audible from the questions that I had prepared by mentioning Marquise Bell, because I do think like we get real critical of him because of the second half of the year and in the run game. On the whole, I think he did a very admirable job for what he was asked to do, because it's a passing league, and on passing downs, he was awesome. But yes, it sucked when they were running the ball at him. Now that you have a room full of linebackers, do you think, like, I think in my mind, Malik Hooker, starting safety, the end, right? Donovan Wilson's check would say starting safety, the end. But between Marquise Bell and what you saw from Wanye Thomas when he got to play last year, are there threats in camp to one of the safety spots?
So I think I think these guys are two different guys. I would say that Wanye to me has more of the sideline to sideline speed as far as like cover the range in that way.
I want two of those on the field.
I agree. And it's possible we might see that because of the way that Zim likes to run defense. It's possible we might see two guys that we consider maybe free safeties on the field. And so I get that. But with Marquise Bell, there's no J. Ron Curse anymore. And I know that the big nickel is not going to be our foundation, but to know that when you do have to go nickel, you can put him in there, and he has the ability to stay with these because he's also a lot bigger in person than what I think people think anyway, but he has the ability to stay with these tight ends and things like that. And I know you've seen the schedule, you about to go up against a whole bunch of good ones. So to me, I always envisioned Marquise taking over the big nickel position and the big nickel spot. Now, can you use him as a robber sometimes, depending on what happens with Donovan and everything like that? Sure. But as far as the ranginess, I personally think that Wanye has a little bit more. I can't describe what I'm saying, but I feel like he has just a little bit better of an ability to cover a lot of grass and be a little bit more rangy in that regard.
Iisha, will Trayvon Diggs be Trayvon Diggs immediately? The fun part about asking people questions is then you don't have to answer it, because the answer is to all of them is, I don't know.
no, it definitely is a I don't know. Like it definitely is a I don't know. Now Trayvon's a DMV kid, so they are a little different. But I will say, I think Zim's system might help him be more himself earlier than maybe what it would have been with Dan Quinn. One thing about Dan Quinn, he heavily relied upon man. And I know guys like Diggs enjoy playing man because they have the ability to do it. But when you're a guy that's coming back from an injury, hey, playing some of that zone, doing some of that deceptive stuff, he won't have to be as deceptive because the scheme will have that embedded in it. So some of the risk that he took and jumping routes and stuff like that, I do believe he'll have more of an opportunity to do that within the system and him not taking risk because that's what the system calls for. So I don't know, like it just really to me is contingent on how much running they doing, because one of the general consensus from a lot of the corners is like, I kept hearing my legs are tired because this team plays man at maybe the first, second highest clip in the NFL. And I think that wears on those guys after a while. It's like we talk about chasing around Curry the whole game. Semantics. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. So I think he is going to take some time to acclimate in that sense, but I do think that the system is going to possibly be easier for him to come back into personally.
Now, Iisha is a film junkie and a film nerd. So I want to ask you, because I think one of the most important things for this team this year is what does the offensive line do? Like the center thing, we can deal with later. The left tackle thing, we can deal with later. I want to know, did you see from Terrence Steele last year progress from beginning of year to end where you have optimism that this year he'll be better?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, even if you look at him in the Green Bay game, like I thought there was I want to say maybe it was the last 3 to 4 games that he started looking more strong, because one thing I saw him doing a lot was like leaning and really trusting, using his upper body and not really setting into his anchor the way that he can. But also too, I believe that Terrence Steele is definitely a confidence player, like builds confidence as he goes through the game type player. And the lack of run game and the way that this scheme wasn't conducive to, what I thought the offensive lineman did well, I felt like that played into a lot of him not being comfortable right away as well. Because, we talk about it even with Dak. Dak's one of those guys, like, he get hit in the mouth early in the game. He kind of feels the game, I guess people say. I really do think that's the thing with Terrence Steele, personally. And I didn't think he had enough of that. But this year, he's a hard worker. I think he'll be ready to go. But I hope that this run game actually lets him succeed and allows him to do some of the things he does best. So we already know as a run blocker, that's his bread and butter. Like, yeah, can he pass protect? Sure. But the run game is really where he makes people pay. And then that's what makes the passing game easier for him.
That's why I kind of want Cooper Beebe to win the center job, because I feel like you could start pushing people around. I like pushing people around.
That's fair. And it's crazy to me because that might be like, that's one of the biggest competitions, because you look at it and you say, and I'm glad that there's some competition at center. Let me say that, because I felt like we did Tyler Biadasz a disservice not having real competition around him for the majority of his career here. It was just like, yeah, he's going to be the starter. And I don't think that's healthy in football, period. But that's the story for another day. I do think that this competition with Hoffman and Beebe is going to be interesting, because I know when the Cowboys drafted him, I initially was like, oh, in my mind, I'm thinking that's the starter. But when you start listening around and paying attention, and then you see Brock Hoffman, I do think homie got a chip on his shoulder. He do got some nasty to him, Jeff. I mean, he may not be the physical talent that Beebe is, but he might be starter quality depending on what we see. And it is a good place to be in. But personally, to me, I think adequate depth on the offensive line is a luxury. I think if you have guys, like when you talk about, we don't know what's going to happen with Austin Richards yet, but I definitely would love to see him become the swing tackle. If you have a Hoffman as a backup, if you have TJ Bass as a backup, dog, you're in so much better of a position than most teams in the league. Because this is a long season. We know injuries happen. And we've seen this head coach alter game plans because of the offensive line. But what if you don't have to do that? What if you don't have to change the whole playbook if somebody says, my toe hurt? You know what I'm saying? So whereas like I'm like, yeah, like maybe Hoffman can be a starter and everything. TJ Bass possibly might be a starter. Have adequate depth and let them develop into starters eventually. That's me. That's me. I don't know everybody don't feel like that, but that's me.
No, I think offensive line is so hard to find.
Right.
Everybody, I feel like most NFL fans know their team. And like when a guy goes down, you know who's going in. Check all 32. Teams are in trouble when you lose offensive.
Yes.
Teams are in trouble.
We used to be that team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we had one of those last year. We had the Chuma game. Was it the Chuma game at left tackle? The 48 sacks. Yeah. I forgot who to block.
But honestly, though, Jeff, that is to me something to keep an eye on as well, though. And I'm just because I think Tyler Guyton is capable, but we have to be realistic in the fact that this is a right side player. This guy came in as a right side player
and a young offensive lineman, like in terms of how long he's played it.
Tracking, right? And so it's like, hey, I'm not trying to see Chuma like that. Chuma's so nice, so I'll be feeling so bad. But I'm not trying to see Chuma like that. I will say that I thought that Chuma had better success as a guard when he did some guard things. I just don't think that he has the foot quickness to deal with edges on the outside. But also, too, it's like I thought he did some decent things pulling and pinning, too. But I'm just like, listen, dude, I really need Tyler Guyton to come in and be ready to take over that left tackle position. I personally do.
Week 1, he gets Myles Garrett. Have fun. Iisha is having the 32nd best running back group. That's according to Pro Football Focus in the NFL. Okay, or is that silly? And is there anything that could happen that would change our mind about how good their running backs are?
No, I mean, no. Now I will say, and I was just talking to Sky about this. I do think that Royce Freeman is a little bit more interesting than what people think. I think that you're going to see some people get a little bit more interest in him and stuff through camp. The guy has some burst. He has some breakaway speed. He's a little tough nose. I do think he could pan out to be a good addition. But Jeff, ain't none of this, I almost cussed. Ain't none of this going to matter if your run scheme is terrible and predictable. And I mean, I'm just saying, like, so for me, it's like, it doesn't matter who is back there. If the run scheme is not going to help, then you're just going to be the same team you were. And furthermore, like, yeah, teams are doing this by committee thing. We've seen it. The running back position has drastically changed, and what it calls for is drastically changed. However, even those teams have a guy, at least one guy that you know is a star. And then the rest of the guys are kind of complimentary. So who is the guy here? Who's the guy?
I think if you were going off of, we're going to go to camp, we're going to watch you guys play, and we're going to decide, the answer is Rico. I think in this organization, with the history of it, Zeke.
See, and that's a problem for me. Zeke. Because do you want to win games or not? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? And like, and to your point, the only thing that hurts Rico, and we know this, is some of the health stuff, because I think he is probably like one of the more well-rounded backs in general on this team. He can run with power. He can run through the tackles. We've seen him in the screen game. We've seen him in the receiving game. He's good in pass pro. I think he's not obviously like a star, but as far as like, can I get things out of him? Absolutely. So if he were able to stay healthy, yeah, I think he could be just fine. But I think they took it too far. I think they took it too far with the
running back doesn't matter.
Yeah, the running back position has changed. Teams are doing it by committee and all this or whatever, because you look at Detroit and you like, yeah, that's a committee, but Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just,
and their other guy's a stud too. Montgomery's a stud too. Like, yeah, that's a committee. It's a committee of studs.
Yeah, and you just ask yourself,
we got to let the deuce loose, Iisha.
Yeah, and that's my thing too. Is like, I definitely think that Deuce does fit. Like, it really pissed me off last year because his tape is his tape. Like, his tape was good. His tape was him receiving, him doing things. And again, people are like, oh, well, the pass pro, whatever the case may be. I get that part. Fine. Blech.
So don't
But
stay in. Go on a route. If they blitz, throw it to them.
that's what I'm saying. I think he could be so intricate on third downs and receiving downs because he has that capability. And so I'm just like, it's up to the coach to find ways to get him involved. I don't know. I personally do think he still may make this roster if it's not even in a running back capacity because of all the changes on special teams and the way that they're set up. He and Turpin are going to have opportunity to return more this year. And so I do think he could still definitely make the roster.
I like it. That's all I have today, Iisha. I quit. That was all I have.
That was all you had. Okay. So I have a question for you.
Okay, because that was going to be my dismount is I quit.
You got to stop quitting.
But now I'm back. I love quitting. Quitting is so underrated.
It is.
If something sucks, just quit. Well, make sure you got something lined up. But then just quit.
Just quit.
Yeah. Okay, what's your question?
Relationships suck? Just quit.
Oh.
No, that's terrible.
I'm really good at doing that. Yeah. Hi, anxious avoidant here.
Anxious avoidant?
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Oh my God, those my nemesis.
I know it now, so you can battle it. You can fight back a little bit when you know it.
I'm glad you know it because y'all some of the worst people.
Not on purpose, though. We don't want to be. I promise. We feel worse about it than you do. At least some of us.
Tap dancing and moonwalking on people's feelings.
I don't mean to.
Okay. So, my question for you, and me and Sky were talking about competitions. How about the competition at DT? How about the competition at one?
Who? I'm going into camp. Like, I don't even remember y'all's names. Is one of them named Rogers? There's a guy named Rogers.
Yes.
And the Iowa guy is in camp. Carl Davis. And there's an undrafted guy. Like that's running back part 2 for this team. Honestly, you better hope to God Mozzie takes a big step.
I'm not betting and this is the conversation we had on the draft show. And I was like, I'm not betting on that. Why would I be betting on something I ain't seen?
Why would I be? Okay, so that's the Cowboy offseason thing is the whole all in thing. Stop listening to words Jerry Jones says. They don't matter. But so I wasn't even asking you to sign giant free agents. I'm asking you to do what NFL teams do, which is use free agency to plug your giant holes, which is sign me a journeyman, one tech, and sign me or draft me a running back who might be good enough to be a lead back. That's all I wanted from your offseason is those 2 things. You did neither one of them.
That's it. And ironically enough, your inability to run the ball and your inability to stop the run have been your biggest problems. So what
and they said it and then did nothing about it.
What's happening here? So for me, man, the DT position is more than the running back position, far more than the running back position. Because the thing about the running back position, if y'all can't run the ball, guess what? Fork gonna slang that thing. At DT, there's no solutions. There's no solution.
I think the only solution is hoping that you're going to get better run defense consistently from your edge guys. And so up and down it, you feel like you can improve a little bit. But yeah, that one spot, and obviously Ose is a good player, but that one spot at nose tackle is if Mozzie is not there, it's going to get ugly.
Well, I mean, and being honest though, when you look across the NFL, I'm starting to feel like having adequate DT depth or play is a luxury now. Because even if you look at the draft, look at how much higher some of these guys went just because they were one techs. Just because teams are trying to shore up that side of, that point on the defensive line now, I know that they're hard to get because people don't want to give them up anymore. So I didn't expect for them to get someone, to your point, I didn't expect for them to get a star in free agency because they're not willing to offer the same amount of money. But I do think at some point in time in camp, somebody gonna be on the phone. And it's not to knock again, I think that Justin Rogers does have the ability to develop into an adequate DT, and because he's a space eater, he has the size, he has some of the awareness. I do think that he can come in and be a good rotational piece. However, when you look at Philly, guess what? They have stars at that position. They got like real like athletes at the position. But when you look at them towards the end of the season, guess what? They were tapering off. That run defense was struggling because they had a lack of depth there. So regardless, like guys are going to tire down. And I'm sick of seeing Osa having to do things like two gap, and that's not his damn job. And that's not what he's really good at.
Yeah. We got one D tackle on the roster, baby. And he's in his last year too, so you're not ready for next year either.
I mean, what brings me to my second point, that I have not heard his name that much. Junior Fehoko is someone that I think I definitely want to be paying attention to as well, because he can do a lot of Osa-like things, but we'll see if he is playing more on the edge or not.
Yeah, and maybe that's just what they're going to do, is they're just going to throw guys that are big edges down, but that doesn't work. 280 don't play at a 330 spot.
Zimmer don't play that. I don't think that's going to
that doesn't fit either. This D coordinator wants giant people, and they didn't go get that. It's all very confusing. It's very
weird.
Confusing.
I was surprised. I expected for when I was still seeing Chauncey Golston play on the interior doing OTAs, I was like, wait a minute. This isn't Zimmer like.
They don't have people.
And you don't, but yeah, they don't have the rotation. And then also too, like, but that takes away from your edge play where you lost depth there as well. So it's like it's just so weird. Like they're just not taking the initiative to do some of the things that I think they need to do specifically to get better. I wanted to ask big homie, who was our run game coordinator? Scotty. What is his name? Barnacles.
You're not talking about Schottenheimer, are you? The OC?
No, not Scotty, the offensive line coach.
Oh, Solari.
I wanted to ask him. I didn't get a chance, but I wanted to ask him, granted, Solari's old school. He has a system. He has his way of doing things. However, good coaches tap into trends. And one of the biggest trends we've seen in this NFL are motions, shifts, things like that, to create spacing and opportunity. But we didn't see that at all from the Cowboys. And the run scheme was very predictable in that sense. I wanted to ask him if that's something he was looking to incorporate a little bit more in his second year. If I get the chance, I will ask.
I hope so, because you know what I think might be their best run plan, just because of what they don't have at running back. It might be to just F with people on offense and do short motions with Turpin, CD, Deuce, and hand it to them. Each of them 4 times a game.
I agree.
There's 12 carries.
I agree.
And now they got to play that.
Yeah, if you're not going to have the run game that, is traditional, then find ways to create. We've seen other teams do it. We've seen specifically San Fran do it. Like they figure out how to get some level of run game going, even if it doesn't look traditional. And a lot of that is a slot receiver or a receiver doing some of those things. And you have the gentleman on this team to do that. And also, too, we already know speed kills. Speed is important. And I'm like, you got guys that can do that. If you can't go power, which most teams can't, okay, then be deceptive. Put some sprinkles on that. Do something.
Ma'am. That's a good way to end it. That's a good way to end the first episode of Is It the Hot Dog or Is It the Bun? An ADHD Cowboys presentation from Iisha.
No, this is a hot dog bun. I think it's a hot dog, too.
All right, hit the end button. Hit the end button.